So, are you guys ready for some in-depth succession planting? This is where your garden plan, your mapped out garden plan, comes in and connects with the click and drop gardening calendars. And you know what? I need to pull up our thing here. So today, my dad and I sat down with our plug and play garden plan and we said, okay, let's plan some in-depth succession planting. Let's plan a perpetual harvest out of this plug and play garden plan. And we're going to show you a very simple, very easy way that you can plan a year-round garden where you are with crops that are just being planted, and then as soon as they're taking out, the next crop is being planted in its place, right? So let me pull up, I've got to get our, oops, not that one. See if it comes through here. All right, while we're waiting for that to come through, let me just jump back over to, so here's what we suggest you do, and we'll make this available to you as well. Once you have mapped out your garden space, it should be mapped out with 4 sections like this, with your beds marked out like this, and it'll just be empty inside, right? And then you'll start planning where you put each of the different crops in your garden. And so that's what we did. And here we go. Now I have it. So let me download it here and open it up for you guys so that you can see it. And then I'll walk you through what we did with it here. So I'm just gonna open this up so that you can see our whole plan. All right, so I'm gonna switch the screen here. And pull up the plan that we did here. Let's see if this shows. All right, here we go. Hey, it's working. Okay, so here's what we did. We're gonna start with an example with our beans, our beans section here at the bottom, okay? So this beans section at the bottom, this is where we were growing peas and green beans, all right? Peas and green beans. So here's what we did, and here's how we planned it out with the click and drop gardening calendar. We went over to the gardening calendar and we said, okay, let's plan one section of bed at a time, right? One section of bed at a time. So this whole bed space, forget this little line right here right now. This whole bed space was just divided into 2 spaces. We had green beans in one, we had peas in the other, all right? So we went over and we went over to the calendar and we actually decided, hey, we can actually grow 2 plantings of peas. We can grow peas here and we can grow peas here, and then we can grow green beans after each of those plantings. Now I'm going to show you in the calendar how that works, but for the very first off, you'll see we wrote peas number 1 and we wrote peas number 2 here for these 2 sections. Now I'm going to show you first of all just this first section, peas number 1, okay? And how we planned this section of the garden out with succession plantings. So I'm going to pull up our gardening calendar. And here's how we did it. So for that one section, I came over here, and if you filter on the side here of the calendar, I'm just gonna make this a little bigger so you guys can see it. So if you filter, you can filter by the name of the crop, and you can actually put in multiple crops here. So I'm going to put in peas and drop in the first crop of peas right here, peas number 1. But then I wanted to grow green beans after those peas were harvested, because these peas are harvested in June, most of May and then the beginning of June. So then I want to grow green beans afterwards. So I'm going to type in green beans and the green beans will show up here. And now what I need to do is I need to find out which green bean planting is going to be seeded, because they're direct seeded, which one's going to be direct seeded after the harvest of peas, or around the same time the harvest of peas is ending. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to clear this up a little bit. All I want to see is the seeding times and the harvest times. All of these other tasks are a little clutterful. So I'm going to go to the filter down here, type in seeding, and then click on the action seeding, and it will filter down to just the seeding. Then I'm going to filter down to just the harvest time. So all I'm seeing is the seeding and harvest time. So then we'll look at these examples. So if I put in green beans bush number 2, actually I thought that was the wrong one, but that's the right one. Let me just show you this one. If I put in green beans bush number 1, see, they're direct seeded right when these ones are just starting to harvest. So that's not going to work. Can't do that one. But if I do bush beans green number 2, they are being seeded at the end of the harvest time for these peas. You know, it might be a little bit early on the end side time of these peas, but we're just working off of ballparks, okay? So they are direct seeding at the end of this harvest, so we're going to do those green beans. Then if I come down and do green beans number 4, let's see, when did those direct seed? No, that's too early. It's before the harvest of green beans number 2 there. So let's try number 5 here. Perfect. So we're going to do green beans number 5 because they are being direct seeded at the end of the harvest of your green beans number 2. So this is our succession plantings for that space in the garden. So what you're going to do is in that space in the garden, you're going to write peas number 1, green beans number 2, and green beans number 5. And I'll show you how we wrote that. Right here. It might be, I don't know if you guys can see it because it's a little bit gray, a little bit, but we wrote peas number 1 here, green beans number 2, and green beans number 5. So in each section of your garden, you're going to want to write a list of the crops that you're going to do in succession. Now, we did the exact same thing over here with this second section over here. We did the second planting of peas there, which is later than the first planting, and green beans number 4 fit in right after the peas number 2. So that is our succession planting for this second area over here. Is everyone tracking? Does that make sense? All right. I'm going to show you 2 more examples here. We're going to show you an example with the, should we show them an example with the lettuce?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's show you an example with the lettuce, okay? So you'll notice here with our lettuce, we set up 3 lettuce plots because we want to have a continual harvest of lettuce. So we're just going to plant a few lettuces here, a few lettuces here, and a few lettuces here, and we'll be harvesting these ones first. And then a couple weeks later, these ones will be ready to harvest. Then a couple of weeks later, these ones will be ready to harvest.
So the idea was to have 6 lettuce planted in each of those sections. We figured that, you know, I think for most couples, 3 heads of lettuce a week is probably a decent amount. And so there's a 2-week window between each lettuce planting there.
Yep.
So that the 6 heads would get you through the 2 weeks.
Yeah, so we'll show you what we're talking about here on the calendar. So I'm just going to turn everything off. So what we did is, as I was planning each section, we just planned one section of the garden at a time, and then I turn everything off, and then I go plan the next section of the garden. So the next section of the garden is lettuce, and then I'll show you at the end how you turn everything back on and you have your whole plan all set up. So the next section is lettuce, and I'm going to drop the first one in. Now with lettuce, we transplant lettuce. So the key times with lettuce aren't seeding and harvest, but it's transplanting and harvest. Because when you seed it, you're going to be growing it inside or in your little seed starting place or whatever. It's not actually in your garden, so it's not taking up your garden space. But when you transplant it in, that's when it takes up your garden space, yeah. Right? Yeah. So when I come down to filter here, I'm going to filter by not the seeding, but I'm going to filter by transplanting and harvest times. okay? So now I need to find out which lettuce transplants right after the first lettuce number 1 harvests. If I do lettuce number 3, oops, it transplants, well, it transplants at the end of lettuce harvest 1, but I think we can do better than that. Lettuce number 4 transplants directly the week after those first harvests of lettuce. Now, we already did this before, so just to save you time, I'll show you if I jump down 1, 2, 3 more down. This one is a heat-tolerant lettuce because we're getting into the summer, and it's transplanting right after lettuce number 4. Drop down several more, and it's transplanting right after this heat-tolerant lettuce number 2. So that's how we go down through. And you'll notice, so there's 1, 2, 3, and then you start over again. 1, 2, 3, and then you start over again. 1, 2, 3, and you start over again. So that's why we have 3 different sections, because the next section, this first section gets plantings 1 and 4. The next section is going to be plantings 2 and 5, because they go right after each other, 2 and 5 right there. The next section is plantings 3, and then the first heat-tolerant one. Those ones are right after each other. So when you come over to your garden space, that's why you'll notice over here in your garden space, you've got lettuce 1, lettuce 2, lettuce 3, and then it bumps back over down here to lettuce 4, lettuce 5, and then we're getting into summer, so it's lettuce heat tolerant number 1, lettuce heat tolerant number 2, lettuce heat tolerant number 3, lettuce heat tolerant number 4, and it just keeps going. Boom, 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 boom. Now, here is where it gets really, really cool. So you got lettuce, after the heat tolerant ones, it jumps back down to the numbering of the cool lettuce varieties, right? So you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up there, and then in the fall it picks up at lettuce number 6. You got lettuce 6, 7, and 8. I'm going to show you something really cool, because we discovered that by the time your last planting of green beans is finished, your lettuce number 9 is ready to transplant. And you could actually come, you've harvested the green beans out of here, they've been taken out at the end of the year, and you could come plant more lettuce in this green bean location and just make your garden space even more productive. So I'll show you how that works in the calendar. What do you guys think of this? What do you think? So I'll show you how it works on the calendar. So I'm going to pull up the green beans. So the last green beans was green beans number 5. Again, I'm just going to filter here by harvesting and transplanting here, because I'm going to be showing you the lettuce. So the last planting of green beans harvests this first week of October is the end of its harvest. And if I come down here to lettuce number 9, it is ready to transplant right after the green beans are taken out. So you can put these lettuce plants, you can plant more lettuce and start filling up that green bean place with lettuce for the fall. And that you could put in the winter. And then you could put 10 and 11, number 10 and 11 in there as well. So, what do you guys think? This is really where the power comes into planting your garden. I'll show you one more example, because we showed you these two examples here are some of the more complicated ones. Take a little bit more planning. Most of the crops are just going to be a 1 or 2 time thing. Like tomatoes are a 1-time thing if you're growing indeterminate tomatoes. You know, you just plant them at the beginning, you harvest them all year long. Potatoes, you can get 2 plantings of potatoes in, at least where we are. It's going to be different in different locations. That's why you need to use your calendar based off of your location and play around with it to see what works for you. Kale, we do a spring planting and a fall planting of kale. And again, in each section in your garden, you just write what planting it is. Kale number 1 and kale number 3. Broccoli number 1, broccoli number 3. Potatoes mid number 1 and potatoes early number 2. And those are just found out in the calendar as we go along. So I'll show you just briefly so that you guys can see. I think you get the picture anyways, but just so you can see exactly how it works here. So I've got like the kale here. So this is an example of the kale. Of kale in the spring, there's two options for planting kale in the spring. They're not succession plants. Like, you plant the second one and it overlaps with the first one. It's just, if you didn't get it seeded earlier, we're going to give you another option to get it seeded later, right? So we're going to plant that one. And then kale number 3, the reason why I planted kale number 3 is it's the closest one to kale number 1. And it also, kale you can just continue to harvest it. So the sooner you're harvesting it into the summer almost, the better, because you'll just be able to keep harvesting it down through the winter. And then I'll show you with potatoes here what we did. So in our location, we can do potatoes mid, number 1, and then potatoes early, because you'll see the potatoes early are being direct seeded when these at the end of the harvest period for these other potatoes. So you just want to figure that out based off of your location. Then what you do is, once you've gone through and figured out each little section of your garden, you've figured out the succession plantings for each little section, you've written them in based on the numbers in the calendar, then what you're going to do is you're going to go back into your calendar and you're just going to turn on every single planting that you put into your garden plan here. So you'll just start with, lettuce 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you turn all of those ones on. Cabbage 65 day number 1, cabbage 65 day number 3, you'll turn those ones on. Broccoli 1, broccoli 3, you turn those ones on. Kale 1, kale 3, you turn those ones on. Once you turn them all on, then your garden plan is done. You're ready to go, and you have got a succession plan for your garden that is just going to knock your socks off on the amount of food that you'll be able to grow compared to what you probably have used to be doing, because it's all planned out for your gardening season. All right, there you have it. And look at that, 8 o'clock, right on the dot. Right on the dot.
That's great.
Yeah, what do you guys think? We try to make this as extremely simple for you as possible. We want to give you just step-by-step how you can do it and how you can do it easily and simply using the calendar, using your garden plan that you've mapped out on a piece of paper now, and using that crop rotation that we just told you, and figuring out how you can make succession plantings a perpetual harvest. That's what we call a perpetual harvest hack for your garden.